Greetings, salutations, and welcome back. I'm Dalton Cowan, and today I'm going to show you how you can grow one of our mushroom fruiting blocks right at home. Stay tuned. So when we first inoculate our fruiting blocks with our premium grain spawn, they take a little while to colonize. This one's been going for about a week or two, and they take usually about 3 or 4 weeks. So when you get one from us, they come fully colonized. That whole block has been colonized by that mushroom mycelium. And to go ahead and induce the fruiting process, all that you need are 3 things. You need a knife, some duct tape, and a mister or a spray bottle. So step 1, the first thing that you want to do is you want to make about a 1 inch by 1 inch slit on one side of this bag here. I like to do it on the short side. You could do it basically anywhere on the bag that you like. And as far as misting goes for your mushroom fruiting block, basically you want to mist it every time you think about it. You can't overwater mushrooms. They're basically 90% water, and so you can mist them directly and really, soak them down to where they're dripping. If you want to put them in an area of your home that has a little bit higher humidity, that's totally fine as well. Your mushrooms need 2 things to thrive. They need bright indirect lighting and adequate moisture. The reason why they need light, mushrooms use light not to photosynthesize, but they use light to orient themselves, and they also use light to develop a nice cap color as well. And obviously they need a lot of moisture because they're mushrooms and they're basically 90% water. I always guarantee that you're going to get at least 2 harvests off of your mushroom fruiting block, as long as you get it from us. You're probably much more likely to get 4 or maybe even 5 harvests out of it, and each harvest is going to be successively less than the one before it. So on the first flush you might get, say, a pound, maybe a pound and a quarter. Second flush might be 3/4 of a pound, then maybe a half pound, then a quarter pound, then just 1 or 2 mushrooms. And eventually that food supply is going to dwindle to the point to where the mushroom mycelium can no longer sustain itself. Mold and bacteria and so on are going to start to overtake that block, and at which point you can just go ahead and compost it, or you can break it up and mix it into your garden soil or whatever you please. We also have a video on this channel of things that you can do with your spent fruiting block, so head on over and check that out if you like. Your mushroom fruiting block is going to go through about a 2 to 4 week resting phase in between each harvest, depending on the species. Some species are very aggressive, such as golden oyster. Those typically only rest for about a week in my experience. Blue oyster, about 2 weeks, but sometimes up to 4. If it's been longer than, say, 6 or 8 weeks and you haven't seen any more mushrooms grow, it's probably spent. Most of the time, for most people, I recommend that you grow these indoors. You can grow them outdoors, but due to the added airflow and added ventilation, you're going to need to mist a whole lot more. Also, the bugs can get into them, and although they tend to produce a little bit beefier looking fruit grown outdoors, especially in midsummer, they tend to like cooler temperatures, and so room temperature is perfectly fine, and indoors tends to be a little bit more manageable for most people. Well, you don't want to remove this fruiting block from the plastic. The plastic is there for a very good reason. It holds in all that moisture and it prevents the block from drying out. If you remove the bag entirely, it's going to dry out very, very quickly. It's going to try to pin all over the block, most of which are going to abort, and so all that wasted energy could have gone into the main fruiting body. You can think about this fruiting block as almost like a log in nature. So the plastic is kind of like the bark on the outside of the log, and you can think about this as the heartwood on the inside. So once that log is fully colonized in nature and it comes out to the bark and it starts to detect that oxygen, it will then begin to induce fruit bodies. The next thing that we're going to want to do is to squeeze all that air out of the top of the bag. We want to eliminate this microclimate in the inside of the bag. That way this bag will only produce fruits where we cut it and not try to continue to grow on the inside of the bag. Squeeze all that air out, kind of pull this down to the side and get that nice and tight. And there is your mushroom fruiting block, ready to go. So each one of our 10-pound commercial-sized mushroom fruiting blocks will produce about 2 to 4 pounds of fresh mushrooms over the life of the block, depending on species. Something like Blue Oyster, like what we have here. This is actually on its second flush, but first they'll start to emerge as very tiny little pins. Then, within just a few days, they'll absolutely explode in growth. And so the whole process from pinning to full maturation usually takes about 5 to 7 days for this species. You can see that these are still a bit young. When those caps are kind of curled over this way, right as they start to flatten out, or just before, is typically when you want to pick an oyster mushroom. And so these have just started their journey. These are well on their way. Should be ready to pick in about 24 or 48 hours. So just as a side note, we've actually taken the 10-pound blocks off of the website for the time being. The reason is shipping just became prohibitively expensive for these larger blocks. So we are offering these locally at the farm. We're offering them at the farmer's market, but we're not currently shipping them. But what we are working on is we're going to go back to making some 5-pound blocks. That way we can ship them to you guys a little bit cheaper. And at that time, they'll go back on the website. I'm probably going to work on that this winter. So in the meantime, I'll get to work on getting some more of those blocks up on the website for you guys. But you can go ahead and head on over to cowansfantasticfungi.com and check out all of our other goodies. We've got all kinds of cool stuff. We're adding new stuff all the time. Cultures, we've got grain spawn now, sterilized grain, all sorts of new stuff, some plants as well. So head on over and check us out. And if you like this sort of content, please like this video, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Hope everyone has a marvelous day. We'll catch you on the flip side.